racers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Arkansas, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. And we can't do this program without you listening every single day. Telephone number is 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the conversation today. I guess my top story in terms of what happened yesterday, you have to look, if we're talking nationally, we do have a good show for you. We're going to be talking to Mr. Tim Loggins from the Patriots Fact 746 coming up at 6:33. Then 7:33, State Senator Gary Stubblefield will be on the program giving his impression of the session. At 7 o'clock, I want to go over a little bit of what happened last night at the Craighead County Republican Committee meeting. Pretty interesting stuff. The committee successfully passing a resolution affirming the Republican Party platform. I'll tell you why that was necessary coming up at 7:05. And let's start with the top story, though. We have a decision out of the Supreme Court that I think is extremely important. From the Daily Wire, Josh Hammer, pro-life victory. The Supreme Court of the United States has reinstated Indiana's fetal remains disposal law. Go ahead and throw that graphic up there, because this is, to me, what it's all about. This is pro-life victory. SCOTUS reinstates Indiana's fetal remains disposal law. In 2016, then Indiana Governor Mike Pence signed into law the omnibus pro-life bill that had two particularly noteworthy provisions. First, the law required that unborn children who die via miscarriage or abortion be either cremated or buried and not incinerated along with other medical bioproducts. Cremated or buried, basically treating this like it's a human being, like it's a human life, because, of course, we know that it is. Second, as described by Rewire News, the Indiana law bans someone from obtaining a pre-viability abortion if the decision to abort is based on the race or sex of the fetus or concerns that the fetus has a diagnosis or potential diagnosis of Down syndrome or any other disability. Basically saying, you know what, the eugenics thing, I don't think, maybe we don't want to go down maybe we don't want to go down the road of eugenics. I didn't realize this until, I guess I did know this, but until you read Justice Clarence Thomas's opinion, you're not reminded that the 20th century, not only was the 20th century one of the most, in terms of loss of life, I guess, for lack of a better word, violent centuries, or when you're talking about the people, communist, totalitarian dictators disarming the people and then starving them to death or killing them or whatever have you, 100 million people dying in the 20th century because of communism and statism or fascism, whatever you want to call it, essentially not acknowledging the individual rights that are given to us by God, not protecting those rights. Along with all of that, there were a lot of people that were subscribing to eugenics. It's and I suppose it's not a subject that's only in the 20th century. You hear the stories of what, like, for example, some of the Greek city-states would do with their children, the inspections that would happen upon birth. Assuming that the movie 300 is a biography, right, Joe? But, the Spartans inspecting their kids, there is that, and I think there's some historical significance to that, and if you're not fit, then you were eliminated, right? we shouldn't want to, we shouldn't do that here, right? I think that's pretty much. Well, why do we even have to say this? Well, unfortunately, there's been a genocide of babies going on in America for the last 50 years. So that's why we have to say this. So you go back to the article here. Last year, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit, which has appellate jurisdiction over Indiana, upheld the ruling of a lower court saying, you can't enforce this. You can't make, we don't want you to bury, we want you to throw the aborted baby out with medical waste and, like the gloves and stuff.
Baby out with
bathwater. That doesn't apply, but yeah, I see I see what you're saying. Under traditional rational basis review, if the state action doesn't infringe upon a fundamental right or affect a protected class, we will uphold it so long as it is rationally related to a legitimate state interest. This according to the judge. The fetal remains provision easily satisfies that extremely deferential standard. But on Tuesday, in an unsigned per curiam opinion, the U.S. Supreme Court vindicated Judge Mannion and reinstated Indiana's fetal remains disposal law. Notably, seven justices of the court signed on to the reinstatement, with only far-left justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Sonia Sotomayor refusing to join. The per curiam majority clarified that the fetal remains disposal law did not implicate the undue burden constitutional standard fabricated in the court's landmark 1992 Planned Parenthood case. The court also upheld the Seventh Circuit's invalidation of Indiana's race/sex abnormality selective abortion ban, a ban that the Seventh Circuit's prominent judge Frank Easterbrook previously described as a eugenics statute, as Easterbrook powerfully opined last June in dissenting from the Seventh Circuit's decision not to rehear the case in front of the full court. Quote, none of the Supreme Court's abortion decisions holds that states are powerless to prevent abortions designed to choose the sex, race, and other attributes of children. And today, or yesterday, in a lengthy concurrence that will surely be discussed in abortion litigation for years to come, originalist stalwart Justice Clarence Thomas took pains to outline the history. Listen to this from Justice Clarence Thomas. And I knew this but didn't know this. You know what I mean? The use of abortion to achieve eugenic goals is not merely hypothetical. The foundations for legalizing abortion in America were laid during the early 20th century birth control movement. That movement developed alongside the American eugenics movement. And significantly, Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger recognized the eugenic potential of her cause. She emphasized and embraced the notion that birth control opens the way to the eugenicist. Whereas Sanger believed that birth control could prevent unfit people from reproducing, abortion can prevent them from being born in the first place. Many eugenicists therefore supported legalizing abortion, and abortion advocates, including future Planned Parenthood President Alan Guttmacher, endorsed the use of abortion for eugenic reasons. All of this is forgotten, by the way. None of this is ever talked about. It's almost like they're okay with eugenics. What is this, Star Trek II? Technological advances have only heightened the eugenic potential for abortion. Better yet, what is this? Infinity Wars? What is this? The Avengers Infinity Wars? Abortion advocates were sometimes candid about abortion's eugenic possibilities. This is, again, from Clarence Thomas's opinion. Now, in 1959, for example, Guttmacher explicitly endorsed eugenic reasons for abortion. Judge Easterbrook was correct. Whatever else might be said about Casey, it did not decide whether the Constitution requires states to allow eugenic abortions. Enshrining a constitutional right to an abortion based solely on the race, sex, or disability of an unborn child, as Planned Parenthood advocates, would constitutionalize the views of the 20th century eugenics movement. You gotta love Justice Clarence Thomas. Which brings me to my next point. Go ahead and bring us back here, and let's see. This is called Justice Lifts the Nations. For those of you watching at YouTube, Conduit News, Facebook.com/Conduit News. There's a painting I'm very fond of. It's called Justice Lifts the Nations. And what you see here is Lady Justice with the scales in her hands. And by the way, I first saw this in a book that was written by theologian Francis Schaeffer, and I cannot remember. But this is it's over from it's hung over in Europe, and it's by an artist by the name of Paul. Well, we would just pronounce it Roberts. I'm assuming it's Roberts, but Paul Roberts painted this, and what you see here, if you're watching, this is Lady Justice with the scales in her right hand and the sword in her left, but instead of the sword being held up like this, like you would, it's held down, right? And it's pointing on an open book. Guess what that book is? And look, you see the men in robes behind her. You know what those are? Those are judges, right? You see the people in the foreground. People in the foreground are arguing over something. They're arguing over something, and you've got these justices in the back that have got to make the decision. And this is an example where, your standard of goodness, the only standard of goodness or evil we have is because of God and a Creator, because of His attributes. I mean, that's what we're measuring Him against. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And some of you may disagree, but I mean, if you look at this concept of human life and being image bearers of the Creator, then it all really becomes clear. And this painting is entitled "Justice Lifts the Nations." And right now, in this country, we haven't had justice for the most vulnerable amount. It has been an injustice. Those people who are not allowed to make decisions for themselves, somebody else is making the decision to take away their life, thereby depriving them of any liberty, any future decisions, any future wants, desires that they want to try to fulfill in their life. You're taking that away from them. Also, obviously, taking away their pursuit of happiness. Their pursuit of happiness, life, liberty. You can't have any of those if you don't first have life. It's very simple. And all of these abortion laws that the left's freaking out about are really just exposing the flaw in their argument. I'll give you an example. Number one, we talked about what happened in Georgia and what Alyssa Milano and the liberal left are doing. Well, now they're going on a sex strike, which is exactly what I mean, no, it's not like we intended for that to happen, but they're doing exactly what we would want them to do, which means, you liberal women are going to go on a sex strike, which means fewer pregnancies and fewer potential abortions. That's a win-win. But here's another example. In light of this ruling, what did Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg say? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a pregnant woman is not a mother. Oh, okay, well, that's ridiculous. Like, that's totally unreasonable. But at least we have these radical people on the left, the notorious RBG, as she's called, and she can now she's coming out and saying, because she, obviously she dissented in this opinion yesterday by the Supreme Court. She's out there saying, hey, it's no big deal, because I'm right, because a pregnant woman is actually not a mother. A woman who exercises her constitutionally protected right to terminate a pregnancy is not a mother. Ginsburg wrote in a footnote, which in turn responded to another footnote in the 20-page concurring opinion by Justice Clarence Thomas in the Box versus Planned Parenthood of Indiana and Kentucky case. All right, well, I mean, what a crazy radical view. You're not a mom. Now, obviously, this contradicts homicide statutes, manslaughter statutes. It contradicts all of those. Because obviously, if you are pregnant and you are killed, or we count that as 2 lives lost. Well, I wonder if anybody, that's the thing. Like, I wonder if anybody in our society, if we're really wanting to take the left's logic, okay, so maybe you have this hypothetical deceased mother and her child that's still in the womb. What are you going to do? Are we supposed to revive the mom and ask her whether or not she believes she's a mother? Are we supposed to revive the mom somehow and or right before she dies? Whoa, right before you die, you're pregnant, so do you consider this a life? Okay, we have 2 time of deaths. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous if you attempt to apply their logic to everyday practical situations. It's arbitrary. It's capricious. If life doesn't begin at conception, then which is something we can verifiably know, that there is something absolutely miraculous that happens upon conception. And you can observe it. You can know it. You can see it. You have an entirely new strand of DNA that is now unique, that has the instructions for a body plan to be built. And it's amazing. We can know that's the whole, everything else. If it's not conception, then everything else is just an arbitrary line in the sand that's drawn by man. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're facing here. And I look at that painting. Justice lifts the nations. We need a lot more justice. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News, and my name's Paul Harrell. And we got a great show for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. To the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Paul Harrell, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. This is Conduit News, and you can find out more at conduitnews.com. We've been doing these impressions of the session. We got another one for you. Welcome back to the program. State Representative Mark Lowry is with us. Mark, it's always great to have you on, sir. How are you this morning?
Thank you, Paul. I'm doing good. Glad to be with you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead and remind us. District 39, that's who you represent. Where is that exactly?
It's primarily made up of Maumelle and then some areas of northwest Plaskin County, Oak Grove, Marche, Morgan, and then a little bit of North Little Rock over in Amboy.
All right. Well, so let's just give you the floor. State Representative Mark Lowry, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Well, I thought it was a productive session. I'd been asked
Hey folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. For all of our listeners, if you ever miss the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good.
Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
In Arkansas news, lobbyists spend $710,000 to woo state legislators. That's not my headline. That's Michael Wickline's at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. That's right. Lobbyists spent $710,000 over the last 90 days or so. Well, back when it ended in April, to woo state legislators and lobbyists. And so, among the chief... I'm going to camp out here for just a second because this is fantastic to me. So you guys might not remember it, but there was a bill to deregulate optometry in the state of Arkansas. It would have allowed, and it does allow, it passed. And this was a really key moment, I think, where you had legislators standing up to all kinds of pressure from the ophthalmology community. It was really it was the eye care wars, or eye wars, if you will. You had the ophthalmologists saying, well, we've been to medical school, and you had the optometrists saying, well, we've been trained to do these procedures already in optometry school, and Oklahoma has been doing this for, I don't, was it 20 years, or is it 10 years, or 15? I don't know. But Oklahoma is allowing optometrists to do what optometrists in Arkansas were asking to do, and you would have thought that the ophthalmologist tried to make the optometrist. Full disclosure, my father's an optometrist, but I mean I was down in Little Rock. The ophthalmologist and medical elite were trying to make it out that optometrists were like all Jack Kevorkian. Like, I'm serious, they were making it out like optometrists were the devil. And even the ophthalmologist community, you guys were trying to hold on to your sector and you guys know you were. And that's fine, that's just the way it goes. You were trying to make it out and trying to present your argument, and the one thing that you had was fear. You were trying to scare people to not let optometrists do what they are trained to do, and what other states already allow optometrists to do. So this bill passed, but listen to this. The head, the ophthalmologists were so upset, and they spent apparently the most money, from what I can tell. A lobbyist for the Arkansas Ophthalmological Society spent more than $111,000 in the group's unsuccessful quest to defeat a new law that will allow optometrists to perform a broader range of eye surgeries. That's the very first sentence. That's the very first sentence on this Michael Wickline piece. The second paragraph, he writes, Laura Hawkins reported expenses on behalf of the society are the largest total reported by any lobbyist from January 1st to April 30th, according to this newspaper's review of records filed with the Arkansas Secretary of State's office. Hawkins' spending totaled $111,662.20 in the 4-month period, far exceeded that of lobbyists who spent the second and third highest amounts. I'm telling you what, these guys, they were being asked to kill this bill left and right. I just find it humorous, that's all. I mean, this is nothing, too, by the way. This is nothing. This is chump change. Like, right? I mean, let's spend $111,000 to lose. And they got you know what? They got $150,000 next time if they need it. It just is what it is. Oh man, but it is something that this was one part of the session that I think was really good to actually see this get out of the committees, and it took a long time to actually see this get out of both of the chambers and the House chamber at the end, which was really, really difficult. And this is thanks to State Representative John Eubanks who carried this deregulation of optometry in the state of Arkansas. We'll be back in a moment.
To kind of give it a scorecard or a report card, and I'd say it was probably anywhere from a B- to a B. I was concerned about some of the tax increases, specifically the motor fuel tax. I think my score probably is also based on just some internal things that I perceived within the House, just splits between Republicans over some really critical conservative issues. And transformation, that's something that I think we can't really put a grade on right now. The strength and the good of the transformation package is something that we're just going to have to watch later to see if it's effective as the governor hopes it's going to be.
Well, okay. So you mentioned taxes. That was concerning to you. I know that was concerning to me. I mean, we did have, we've gone over this. We did have a solid income tax cut, at least in the standalone form, but then kind of come back with other legislation. And the numbers that I have seen have kind of been doing the math. It looks like when it's all said and done, it's a net tax increase. What do you think?
Well, I'd say that that's probably true, especially if you look at the taxes that would have most affect lower income, lower middle income constituents. We gave them a tax cut, but then turned around, and with the motor fuel tax, it probably more disproportionately affects the lower class. So, with one hand we gave, and then with the other hand we took away. So that's probably one of those areas where I don't know if it's necessarily a net increase to that particular part of the constituency, but it certainly is something that I think the lower income folks, lower middle class, everyone's going to feel the sting of the motor fuel tax.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, and I hear legislators all the time talking about they voted their constituency, what their constituency was telling them. I've never specifically done that. There's not been a lot of issues where I felt like my constituency in Maumelle felt a certain way that was maybe cutting across the tide. But this time, we're building a interchange in Maumelle for a third entrance. And the city of Maumelle, the constituents of Maumelle, ended up having to vote themselves a half-cent.
USOinvisiblewounds.org. The wounds are invisible. The stories are real.
Really provided them written.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. I was perusing some headlines and I came across a story about the state of Louisiana and what they are attempting to do by allowing churches to defend themselves by carrying guns. Well, not churches themselves. Churches don't. The people who go to church. The legislation has already been passed. The bill stipulates that the use of lethal force by a lawful person in a house of worship is justifiable when it's made for the purpose of preventing an intruder from committing a crime or forcible offense against the religious building property or against the lawful person. And he goes on. And I've thought to myself, you know what? Number one, here in Arkansas, just so you know, there was a law passed a few years ago by former Senator Brian King. And if you are a church goer, just so you know, your church in the state of Arkansas by state law has the authority to set its own carrying policy. And you combine that with the fact that Act 746 allows you to carry a firearm without a permission slip from the government, open or concealed, then you have maximum freedom to decide how you best want to defend your congregation. If you want to defend it at all, you could also, if your church, you could also put a sign out. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could put a sign out that say no firearms, and you know what? That would mean what it says. That's why I'm grateful for the patriots of Act 746, because they are on a mission to educate the people out there, the folks, about what your rights are here in Arkansas. And possession of a weapon is decriminalized, open or concealed, here in the state of Arkansas. And you don't need a permission slip. You don't need a permit from the government. Here now, to talk more about this and everything that's going on with the Patriots, we got Tim Loggins back on the program this morning. Hey, Tim.
Good morning, Paul.
Man, it's always great to have you on, and it's been too long. I got used to having you on every week during the session.
Hey, I needed a break, man. The session was killing me.
Hey, you and me both. You and me both. So what's going on? You guys had a meeting last weekend. Where was it, and what was the turnout like?
So we had a meeting down in Arkadelphia with our Southern chapter. Senator Harrell staff attended. Representative Richard Womack, Sheriff Jason Watson was there. We had probably 30, 35 Patriots show up for the meeting, which was a pretty good turnout for that area, just getting started up good. And, had a really good town hall style meeting, and you know, it's kind of amazing. We have these meetings, and the legislators and the local folks that show up, they keep affirming, yep, we don't need a permit to carry a weapon in Arkansas. I've yet to find a legislator that's confused about it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really good, and it's a lot in large part, I would say solely because of you guys, because you're making the effort, and people know what the status of Arkansas's gun laws are. They don't want to mess with them, and that's the good news in terms of we don't want to try to go back. We don't want to do anything that I would say, promotes the idea that you even need a permit to carry at this point. But tell us a little bit about law enforcement. What about law enforcement? What are they doing? I mean, because some law enforcement, they're uncomfortable with the idea that the citizens have a Second Amendment, from what I can tell. Some of them, not all.
Paul, there's a real disconnect from what law enforcement are telling their constituents. And I'm talking about sheriffs and, elected officials. What they're telling their constituents and then what they're doing down at Little Rock. I see the disconnect being at the upper levels of law enforcement, especially the Arkansas Sheriff's Association. I mean, let's be honest. Every pro-gun bill this last session was opposed by the Arkansas Sheriff's Association. It was opposed by the chiefs of police. It was opposed by the prosecutors, with the Arkansas State Police. When you're talking about, doing away with gun-free zones, or you're talking about citizens' ability to defend themselves, we have these organizations that are literally going down to the state capitol and testifying against the citizens. But then you have these sheriff's races where you have the sheriffs talking about, they totally support the Second Amendment. So there's a disconnect there. We talked about that in Arkadelphia a little bit with the sheriff down there. Got into the weeds a little bit about how the Sheriff's Association is voting, member-wise, and then what they're doing down at Little Rock. And I'm finding that some of the sheriffs are surprised at what the Sheriff's Association is doing. Really? And I say all that, Paul, to tell folks that, local politics matter. Talk to your sheriff's candidate. Find out what they're doing, what they're saying, and what they're doing is more important than what they're saying. And hold these guys accountable and make sure that they really do support your right to keep them their arms.
Interesting. So I want to ask you about something you just said in terms of some of the sheriffs are disagreeing with what their association is advocating for, meaning and what is the sheriff's association's beef? What are they scared of people being well armed?
Paul, I really can't speak to that. I just know that they oppose citizens' right to carry a weapon generally, and I'm talking about the Sheriff's Association. Now, your average law enforcement officer in Arkansas does not oppose that at all. And I'm going to venture to guess that a lot of law enforcement don't even know what the Sheriff's Association is doing, and what the Chiefs of Police Association is doing, and what the prosecutors are doing down in Little Rock. Most folks don't realize that they go down there and lobby for and against bills. How many people even know that?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people do, and it's actually very frustrating in a lot of ways when you have these organizations that exist because of the taxpayer. In terms of you have law enforcement positions that exist that are funded by the taxpayer, and then you have these associations that form, and then they go down there and a lot of times lobby against the people's rights. Well, let me ask you this: we're talking with Tim Loggins from the Patriots of X746. Go to Facebook.com, search for Patriots of X746, and ask to become a part of this group. It's a giant group. It's growing all the time. Tim, you're former law enforcement. So, and that's why, you have such credibility. You know the statutes the way you do. You're retired law enforcement. So I guess what is this mentality that we're fighting? I know it's speculative, but I mean, are they afraid of us? Or is it a power thing where they believe that they're the ones that need to have guns? Or do they really just believe in, the people being armed, but we do need a little gun control? I mean, what's their problem? And are they, you think, trying to undo permitless carry, constitutional carry that we have in Arkansas?
Well, Paul, I mean, there's a large segment of law enforcement, including the Arkansas State Police and our Attorney General and our Governor, that have yet to recognize that we're constitutional carry, and every chance they get, they mislead the public about it. And what you're really asking is there's multiple facets to this problem. Part of it is the ability of a citizen to carry a weapon is only 6 years old in Arkansas without a permit. And there's no continuing training for law enforcement where they have to go back to mandatory training. And what you have is new boots out of the law enforcement academy that actually know the statutes better than 10 or 15-year veterans. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem. But then there's another facet to that in that we've got probably 10 good sheriffs in Arkansas that are conservatives that truly support our right to carry. And then you have a whole lot of liberal Democrats, even if they're not really Democrats, they ran as an independent or whatever. That's the majority of sheriffs in Arkansas. And then you got the problem of folks saying one thing and doing another. They say something to get elected, and then when they get elected, they actually do something different, and they're not being honest with their constituents. And by the way, that's not just law enforcement. I want to point out that we had a pretty decent stand your ground bill that was defeated because one Republican sided with Democrats against our right to be able to defend ourselves no matter where we're at. Talking about Senator John Cooper. So, it's important that we hold our elected officials accountable for what they do, not just what they say. It's easy to say, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but that but's always there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And, you mentioned it's only 6 years old, this idea of constitutional carry here in Arkansas. So we've only got 6 years where we've had decades of people, nationwide, but even here in the state, of people being indoctrinated to think that they have to check in with the government in order to carry a weapon. They got to make sure that the government's okay with it. And so that is a psychological battle that we've got to overcome as well.
So, Paul, we were at the restaurant for 67 Deal down in Philadelphia, and we had a meeting. As I was leaving, there was a couple, a gentleman and a lady, that came up to me after the meeting as I was, outside and said, I got to ask, what are you guys doing? Who are y'all? Why do y'all have the gun? And we had a nice long conversation, and the gentleman had a permit to carry, and he was unaware of what the law was in Arkansas, and I was able to educate him on it. And it's still surprising how many citizens have been misled, and they don't know what the current status of the law is, that you don't need a permit to carry a weapon in Arkansas. And I find that everywhere I go all over the state. It really is an education process, and part of our leadership is part of that problem. When you look at the Attorney General is refusing to state what the law is and not giving guidance to these sheriffs. She admitted in AG Opinion 2018 lawsuit that there's no penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a permit, but she still, put a caveat in there that you may be charged. Well, that's nonsense. And so we need some leadership that steps up. We need some sheriffs that step up. We need some chiefs of police to step up and start telling folks what the law is. Yeah. Patriots is doing that. Our numbers are growing. The excitement's there. I think Northeast Arkansas chapter's up around 1,700 members. We're gaining 40 or 50 members a month. The main page, I don't even know what our numbers are right now, but all these chapters are growing. We're getting involved. I saw we had a Craighead County meeting, and I saw a bunch of patriots at the Craighead County Republican Committee meeting. We're getting woke up. We're getting awakened, and we're getting involved, and it's an exciting time to be a patriot.
You know, let's say that you are a law enforcement officer, and you've grown up with the laws the way they were, the way they used to be prior to 2013, and let's say that you are uncomfortable. Let's say that you're uncomfortable with the idea of permitless carry, the idea of concealed carry or open carry, whatever. Let's say that you are, as a law enforcement officer, you just have a personal disagreement. That doesn't matter, and because the people need a good government that explains to them and enforces the law as it's written. It's not your job to be a legislator. It's your job to be a civilian police officer, and or whether you're a sheriff or whether you're Arkansas State Police, whatever the case may be, the people. The moral thing here is that the people are entitled to an honest government. And if the law says that essentially, carrying a weapon is decriminalized, then and it is a big change from what people believed in before 2013, then the people have a right for their government to work for them, and working for them in this case means applying the law as it's written, not the way you would want it to be, but as it is. And I think that needs to be communicated as well.
Well, there's a couple of things that's reality-based on law enforcement. Number one is the lack of guidance and training, continuing education that they're not required to get. And part of it is they see it as making their job harder, and not all of them, I'm saying some. Prior to 2013, just the mere possession of a weapon involved a Terry stop. If you saw a weapon, you could stop someone, you could detain them, you could disarm them, and that then led to other arrests and getting bad guys off the street. We were taught that if a guy was armed, he was a bad guy until you proved that he wasn't a bad guy. That's the old school way of thinking. And now with the law being what it is, possession of a weapon is not even reason for a law enforcement interaction. And that changes the way they have to go about doing their job. So now the weapon is truly protected under the Constitution. So there's a lot of dynamics involved in this, Paul, and it doesn't change anything. They have to relearn how to do the job.
Yeah. You mentioned the Attorney General. She did, in her opinion, in a response to Senator Linda Collins a year or 2 years ago, she said that that there is no penalty for carrying concealed without a permit. She admitted this in the opening paragraph of her opinion. But then she also went on to say that there needed to be further clarification by the legislature. So the legislature then, this past session, they passed two resolutions, one from the House, one from the Senate, agreeing with the Taft decision, where the judge wrote in dicta essentially that that you can't stop somebody just because they have a weapon, because it's decriminalized, and they affirmed that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. That's what the resolutions say. So that's clarification. So are there any plans to, is there anybody out there that's going to ask the Attorney General for another opinion in light of the legislative clarification that was done in this past session?
Paul, I'm not an elected official, and I don't want to speak for them, but it wouldn't surprise me if legislators did a joint letter to the Attorney General and pointed out that her 2018 002 opinion said she wanted legislative clarity, and that they provided that through the joint resolution. That wouldn't surprise me a bit if that doesn't happen in the coming months.
Well, Tim Loggins, it's always great to talk to you, sir. We have more meetings coming up with the Patriots, right? Do you have those dates now, or should people go to the Facebook page to get them?
Well, come to the page, join your local chapters, join the main page. You'll get all the information you need at that point. Share the knowledge. If you don't know what the law is, come join Patriots and we'll show you the law. We're not going to tell you something. I'm going to show you the law. We're not going to give you an opinion. We're going to show you facts. We don't deal in conjecture. We deal in fact. And there's too much misinformation out there, and that's why we exist, to educate the population.
That's exactly right. Tim Loggins, sir, appreciate it. It's always great to have you on. Be safe.
Thanks, Paul.
All righty. You hear Tim mentioning the Stand Your Ground bill. That was Bob Ballinger's bill, and he's at the end of the table. And Stephanie Flowers has that huge blow-up, Democrat Stephanie Flowers, then turns to Senator Alan Clark and tells him to go to hell, the chairman of the committee, and Senator John Cooper is the only Republican on that committee to vote against Bob Ballinger's Stand Your Ground bill. And he even voted against it after it was amended, which actually, from what I'm told, made the bill even, much, much weaker. So, that's a big deal. By the way, I was at the Craighead County Republican Committee meeting last night, and I'm going to be at Greene County, I believe, next week. Greene County Republican Committee next week. I'm just there to observe. I'm there just to observe and, kind of take it all in. And, boy, did I pick an interesting meeting to attend. I'll give you those details coming up here at 7:05. This is Conduit News. Find out more at conduitnews.com. We also have our meme of the day coming up an hour from now, which is fast-growing. It's getting popular, let's just to say the least. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Little money. So I felt like voting for my constituency meant, listen, we've already put a tax burden on ourselves locally to pay for the major road work that we're going to need. I don't think it's right to also put on top of that an increase in the motor fuel tax, at least as far as voting for my constituency.
Yeah. No, and I think that's good. Absolutely. There does become a limit, and I think we're seeing this really statewide. It appears from the DFNA's numbers that when you take the gas tax, even the internet tax, when I know that had corporate reform attached to it, that's going to come into effect later. Then you got the half-cent sales tax that's now going to be going to the vote of the people in 2020. If that comes in, we're talking about a whole lot of money coming from the people to the government, and we had Fort Smith that had to vote down a potential sales tax increase.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Oh, Joe is right. That is not a meme, but that is hilarious. Joe, we're still going over the candidates. By the way, if you have a meme of the day, you can send it to us. Or, if you want to submit, that's what I'm trying to say, your meme of the day, just text us 870-275-9799. Or when we post on Twitter or where we post on Facebook, you can tweet at us or post on us. So yesterday, I was telling you that being a diplomat can be hard. Now, the reason for this is because Donald Trump was in Japan. Now, that's not a hard... I mean, he got to meet the emperor. President Trump got to meet the empress. And he also had to award a trophy to a sumo wrestler. And the angle of the shot was obviously from behind the sumo wrestler where he's in the diaper thong, the thong diaper. And and so Trump picks up this giant trophy. I mean, and it's huge. And he hands it to the sumo wrestler, Mawashi. Oh yeah. The thong diaper's called a Mawashi. So he's in the Mawashi your eyes, and that's the way it is. Well, so obviously people have captioned this, and there is one caption, and it won't make the meme of the day because it's technically not a meme, but somebody superimposed. Okay, but I got to get through this. Can you get this up? Can you show it to us somehow? Do you have time to somehow send it? Maybe we'll get to it next week. So somebody has superimposed and taken out the back of the sumo wrestler's head, where you just see, his black hair, and instead they have put the back of Hillary Clinton's head on this sumo wrestler, and it just says that Hillary finally gets her participation trophy. It's this giant trophy. Oh, it did. Oh, that's good. The Photoshop guy did such a good job that they put a reflection of Hillary's face in the trophy reflection. That's actually really good. It's good Photoshop work. But anyway, it's to see Hillary in a Mawashi.
There's a better one. I'll show it to you.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. We need to be praying for those Arkansans who are in this floodplain and who are struggling with this, and how we've got rain coming in, and how the rain can make the flooding even worse, and with the Arkansas River and everything else. And the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, they are doing a good job keeping people updated on this. Here's an update on Little Rock. Of course, we have Frank Scott Jr., who proposed what I would say pretty giant, bold budget cuts to the city of Little Rock. Eventually, I think it was $5 million, and now it's pared down about $2.1 million. City of Little Rock rejecting, the city council there rejecting budget cuts of $2.1 million. That failed by one vote yesterday. And Mayor Frank Scott Jr. Told city directors that he was disappointed, and that he would continue to ask the board to amend the budget. This was a budget that was approved before he was elected. But from what I can tell, Frank Scott Jr. seems to believe, the mayor of Little Rock, he seems to believe that there has been some mismanagement, and that there could, potentially be tough times ahead if the city of Little Rock doesn't start to get its fiscal house in order. I mean, why else do you propose budget cuts? In the meantime, over in Northeast Arkansas, city of Jonesboro, their city council has now essentially approved going forward with attempting to ask the voters for a half-cent sales tax increase. I'm sorry, for a full cent sales tax increase to pay for quality of life and the fire department. They want to throw that in there. So half of it is supposed to go to the fire department, and the other half is supposed to go to a water park, from what I can tell. So they want to build a water park. You had Alderman Bobby Long, who has announced his run for state representative in District 53 here in Arkansas. Alderman Bobby Long proposed to split it. He said, hey, we should have two separate votes. You should have one for the fire department, half cent, and the other for the quality of life water park tax. That proposal was rejected last night at the Jonesboro City Council, which I would just say, I think this tax is going to get defeated. I think it's going to go down in flames, even though they're going to do it in a special election, which means, the fact that they rejected splitting it means they really don't care about the fire department, and they're likely to get nothing at all now. What do you think? Local governments, state governments, stop raising our taxes.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
On the other side of the state have Jonesboro. They're trying to raise taxes, locally. And so I'm just kind of seeing this trend here, and I just wonder, is there a line? Is there a line where we say, when I go purchase something, is 10% enough? Is 11% enough? Is 12%? I mean, there is a line, I think, where at some point you're disincentivizing economic activity.
Well, absolutely, and a lot of communities also have advertising and promotion taxes on top of their sales taxes, and there is a point where you reach a choke point, and I feel like some communities are probably at that point. Mm-hmm. One of the things that has most alarmed me is when I've looked at school millage taxes. I dug kind of deep on this thing and considered sponsoring some legislation this last session. Just a little over $500 million is collected annually by school districts for debt service millage. In other words, to pay for buildings. They've gone out, they put on the ballot that we want to build a new high school or a new elementary school or a new auditorium, whatever. But of that $500+ million, over half of it goes for something other than debt service. Less than half goes to actually pay the debt service. The school districts are, and it's always put on the ballot as for other educational purposes. Well, to me, that is being deceptive to the voters. You've gone out and you've promoted the tax to pay for a building, and yet over half of that debt service money is going probably into the budget to keep them floating. So I think that there's a major shell game going on with school millage taxes.
We're talking with State Representative Mark Lowry from District 39, the Maumelle area. Mark, you're giving your impression of the session here. Let's talk about some other issues. We talked taxes. What about social issues? How do you think we did there?
Well, that was one of the areas where I was most concerned. We had a bill come to the House sponsored by a number of Democrat senators. It was looking at health issues and expressing interest in trying to help in areas of obesity, tobacco, smoking, teenage suicide, but they also threw in a section about teaching sex ed. And we could not, conservatives like myself, could not see anything in there that would prohibit Planned Parenthood from going to these school districts under the guise of this legislation and actually providing their own sex ed courses. So I sponsored an amendment that just basically said, and the sponsors on the House side were saying, we have no intent of allowing Planned Parenthood. We don't even know where that's coming from. So I said, well, okay, if that's not your intent, then you shouldn't mind my amendment that says any organization that does abortion referrals, abortion counseling, can provide this education. The amendment was voted down, not by Democrats, but by Republicans. And that really concerned me. It really started, I think, and I've said to two different Republican organizations, the biggest challenge to our supermajority, our Republican supermajority, the biggest challenge are Republicans. We're duty bound, I think, as voters, to make sure that these people that are running as Republicans are truly Republicans.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I do think that's the problem, especially when you look at what happened in Arkansas. I think what explains a lot of that is, the Democrat Party in Arkansas has been increasingly unpopular, a sinking ship, if you will. And so, it's now known, if you want to amass political power, you're most likely going to have to do that using the Republican Party as a means. And so that means that, primaries are very important, I think, in the Republican Party, because that's where you really get to talk about why you believe what the platform says,
Right. And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just keeping on the social issues, though, but we did do some good stuff on the pro-life.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Yeah, that's the winner. We decide on the meme of the day. Welcome. Hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. My top story. Well, I meant to do this yesterday. So on April, I'm sorry, what is this, May? Yeah. So 3 days ago on May 26th, this was above the fold in the Jonesboro Sun. See if I can't show this this photo here. You'll have to excuse my poor weatherman skills. Okay, so we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this. All right, okay, sorry. All right, you see this? You can watch this on Facebook.com /Conduit News. So, pro-choice protest. This is from the Jonesboro Sun on the 26th. And it's a picture of a guy with a sign that reads, "No uterus, no opinion." I think that's a guy. No uterus, no opinion. And we have a whole generation of people who don't see the irony in this and or the hypocrisy of this. He doesn't have a uterus, presumably, and yet he's holding a sign, meaning he has an opinion on the subject of abortion. And it's a pro-choice protest. And if you read some more here, it says here that, let's see, Robert Lochner, president of the Arkansas State University Young Democrats, holds up a sign during a group protest with other members of the community in response to recent laws passed in various states limiting reproductive rights on Saturday. I don't know, maybe he's got a girlfriend that's follows Alyssa Milano on Twitter. Maybe he's just kind of... It's just speculative. I don't know. Maybe he's extra motivated to get in the streets. Oh, sorry. I probably doesn't have a girlfriend. Let's see. The group received honks, thumbs up, and obscene gestures from passers-by. Their protest group members say they will protest again June 1st at 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the same location. Okay. Well, there we go. No uterus, no opinion. Really? Come on. There's nothing that says that you're on the cusp of the intellectual, of the intellectual realm, like holding a sign that says that you shouldn't have an opinion, but the sign itself is the opinion. Anyway, enough of that. Yesterday I was at the Craighead County Republican Committee meeting. Now, the reason, let me set this up for you. A couple of months ago, there was a resolution that came out of the Washington County Republicans. So we're going really from edge to edge here of the state. You had Washington County come out with a resolution in the midst of the internet sales tax, in the midst of the gas tax increase, that the State House and State Senate were pushing, in the midst of the half-cent sales tax that they don't want to let expire. They want to keep Arkansas one of the highest sales tax states in the nation. In the midst of all of this, with a few other bills, the Washington County Republican Committee, they pass a resolution that says basically we're going to transmit this resolution to all Washington County state senators and state reps, saying that we believe in the Republican Party platform and the principles of the Republican. Remember when they removed the principles of the platform, then they put them back in because there are enough Republicans who actually believe in Republicanism. And so this was done. The Washington County Committee passed it, and everybody was upset about it. Why would you tell us to vote the platform? Well, the establishment was upset about it. If the people wanted it, obviously they voted for it. And then you had other committees that did the same. And I can't remember them all, but I think Faulkner County Republicans did it, and a few other committee Republicans passed this resolution. They just started copying it. Well, the session is long over, but there never was one out of Craighead County until last night. I can report to you that the Craighead County Republicans passed a resolution last night affirming the Republican Party platform. But there was significant debate over whether or not this was the appropriate thing to do. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that's odd. Why shouldn't this be something that people are in lockstep with? You would think. Let me read you the resolution. We, the members of the Craighead County Republican Committee of Arkansas, on the 23rd day of April. Obviously, this is an amended version here. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and say, and I think they did amend this. They took some language out. They amended its for our, but this is just a draft version, let's say. But this is what they passed. We believe and affirm our party state platform, which supports the power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility and initiative, individual freedom and liberty, secured by limited government, private property, lower taxes to produce economic growth, strong national defense, the personal right to own and bear arms, the equal justice or the equal and just enforcement of the law, and separate and equal branches of government. Be it resolved that the members of the Craighead County Republican Committee hereby instruct its state senators and state house members as direct representatives of the people to do everything within their delegated authority to uphold these principles. Therefore, the chairman of the Craighead County Republican Committee shall send or direct others to send a copy of this resolution electronically to the above-mentioned elected officials and members of the Craighead County Republican Committee, approved and passed by members of the Craighead County Republican Committee of Arkansas. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, pretty straightforward. Let's go over those again. Power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility and initiative, individual freedom and liberty, secured by limited government, private property, lower taxes to produce economic growth, strong national defense, the personal right to own and bear arms, the equal and just enforcement of the law, and separate and equal branches of government. I mean, really, really simple stuff. You would think it would pass overwhelmingly, and it passed 29-13. There were 13 dissenting votes. 13 dissenting votes. Now, I was at the meeting, so I can report to you what was really going on. You want to know what's going on? Well, the fact of the matter is there's a primary that's coming up in Craighead County between Senator John Cooper and State Representative Dan Sullivan. And I have told you before that there have been attempts to divide the Republican Party of Craighead County, and that's what you're seeing here. Now, it's very, very odd, but it's also very telling. So I was listening to the arguments, and really these are supporters of Senator John Cooper. The people who were against the Republican Party platform were supporting John Cooper, who just didn't want the resolution passed. So, and from what I can tell, they didn't want the resolution passed because for some reason they thought a simple vote just affirming and saying, hey, we want our elected officials to do these things, they felt like that was going to make John Cooper look bad. And in doing so, they made John Cooper look bad. It was a real strange. You had from the Highway Commission, you had Alec Farmer, who was at the meeting, who was appointed, I believe, by Governor Asa Hutchinson. He was seemed to be against the resolution because they were talking about, well, what if we don't agree 100% of the time? And it's fine. And people were like, well, that's fine. We know we're going to have disagreements. We know that there's going to be somebody that doesn't necessarily vote the platform every time. But we're just saying, hey, and I'll tell you this. There was one person that spoke for it who said that, that they work hard to raise money for the committee. And that this should be a no-brainer, and when you don't support the party platform, and then you've asked the committee for money, or the committee's given money to other people who don't support the platform, that's a problem. That's a problem, because why do people donate to any Republican committee, whether it's Faulkner County or Washington County or Craighead County or Baxter County or Pulaski, whatever it is? Why do people donate? Well, because they believe in the principles of the Republican Party, ideally. Now, some people just do it for power, as I think we're seeing. Do you know what Senator John Cooper said? Senator John Cooper last night rose and said that passing this resolution would be akin to the old Soviet Empire and party oaths. He said that party oaths undermine the Constitution. He even went so far as to say that this simple resolution, which is not an oath, by the way, that this simple resolution violates the Constitution. It is unconstitutional. I could not believe it. And everyone else couldn't either. I've never heard more of a contrived argument in my life than saying that this was somehow. He said that this resolution was, quote, pious. I was there. I heard it. Other people were there. He said this resolution would put across a holier than thou. Let me read you some of my comments, because I wrote them down, and the acoustics were just terrible, and so I wasn't actually able to get really any audio or anything like that. And I'm not even sure recording is allowed. I was just there, whatever. So let's see here. Claiming it's a party oath that's forbidden under party rules. Says that this resolution, now get this, a resolution that essentially affirms the power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility initiative, individual freedom and liberty secured by a limited government, private property, lower taxes to produce economic growth, strong national defense, the personal right to own and bear arms, the equal and just enforcement of the law in separate and equal branches of government, says that which is the party platform, that somehow undermines the Arkansas Constitution. The party doesn't need to be holy or pious. This is what Senator John Cooper said last night. Says that it's unconstitutional, the Republican resolution and platform. He's essentially saying that the platform is unconstitutional. And this was only just because of politics. The argument was only political because they didn't want the Craighead County Republican Committee doing something that, because if you look at John Cooper's votes, he voted against the Stand Your Ground law. He voted for higher taxes. He voted, he votes for all of these things that are taking more money out of your pocket that don't produce economic growth. So they were worried because, let's be honest, you have Dan Sullivan, who has an excellent voting record, and you have other state reps from Craighead County, like Jack Ladyman, Brant Smith, and Dwight Tosh, who have a better voting record than John Cooper by a long shot. And so this is very, very, you might think it's getting into the weeds here, but I just couldn't believe it. When you have a resolution that is there to simply affirm the party platform, and State Senator John Cooper gets up and says we shouldn't do this, and compares it to the Soviet Empire. He compared passing this resolution to the Soviet Empire of old. Now, I don't think when I used the word contrived, I wish there was a stronger word than contrived that I could think of right now. I don't think the word contrived does it justice. But you understand how ridiculous this was last night. And what it really was is they didn't want a vote of the party, again, 29-13, approving a resolution that essentially rebuked Senator Cooper and his voting record, although nobody was saying that. And that wasn't the purpose. That was the perceived purpose, though, of the other side. And I think the other side, by saying things like some people said, well, I don't disagree with the words, but we disagree with the intent. I was like, wait a second, ding, ding, ding. What that does translation? Because I had no idea what was going on. I don't go, I'm going to start attending these meetings all over. But I had no idea what was really going on. But when somebody said, well, we don't disagree with the words, we disagree with the intent, I thought, well, what intent could there be other than affirming the Republican? And I said, oh, well, then it became kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The intent, the perception of the intent from the other side was that this was going to make John Cooper, Senator Cooper, who's now facing a primary opponent from State Representative Dan Sullivan, is going to make John Cooper look bad. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is so ridiculous. It's just exhausting. And I've seen this all over the state. It's exhausting. Interesting thing here is Craighead County voted for Ted Cruz. Craighead County elects conservatives. And they're going to elect a conservative again, I feel. I feel strong. I feel strong about that. I mean, think about this. How do you stand up? How do you claim to be a Republican and stand up and speak against a resolution of the power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility, all of those things that are principles in the platform? How do you do that? And why would you do that? Is it paranoia? I think it is. I think it's a level of paranoia because this should be something that everybody agrees on in a Republican Party. Yeah, so I think there was a level of paranoia there from a small contingent in the Craighead County Republicans that just seemed to be worried about being called out, being ultra sensitive about being called out. So anyway, you know, and the power of faith in God. Last week I was at the event for State Representative Dan Sullivan where he launched his bid for this Senate seat. And one of the things he brought up was that Senator Cooper voted against the bill that would allow an elective course taught in our public schools on the Bible. Did you know that? Did you know that Senator Cooper voted against a bill that would have allowed the study of the Bible in our public schools as an elective if the kids choose to? Can you believe that? I can't believe that at all. And you know, that just really bugs me. Especially the argument against, because I heard the argument from politicals, well, I don't want some liberal, far out there teacher teaching my kid the Bible. Well, guess what? You don't have to. It's an elective. But there are some of us who actually believe that any time the scriptures are open, there's a possibility for changed hearts, changed mind. It was a great bill, and it was just an elective. And whether you're studying the Bible, I mean, as a Christian, I believe whether you're studying the Bible for historical content or theological content, that's a good thing, isn't it? Senator Cooper voted against that, and a Stand Your Ground bill was the deciding vote in committee on Stand Your Ground. Strange times. I mean, no wonder you didn't want the resolution passed. Again, it did pass. The Craighead County Republican Committee. I mean, you know what? If they think that there's some intent behind it, maybe I guess you could say, well, maybe this was a straw poll as to who the committee's going to be voting for. The power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility and initiative, individual freedom and liberty secured by a limited government, private property, lower taxes to produce economic growth, strong national defense, the personal right to own and bear arms, the equal and just enforcement of the law, and separate and equal branches of government. Does that sound like the Soviet Union to you? We'll be back in just a moment. In the pro-life area, right?
Absolutely. We sure did. And I'm proud of that. I don't know what our current ranking is nationwide. The last I heard is that we're probably the second most pro-life state in the country, and I'm extremely proud of that.
I got to call him. I want to make
glad that we had the opportunity to do even more this session.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, with Georgia, you have the Georgia heartbeat protection law. Arkansas has already passed one of those a couple sessions ago. The Alabama law and so now the liberal press, they're covering this. They're whipped up into a frenzy. And I think to myself, you know, because of that abortion trigger law that was run by Senator Rayford and Mary Bentley on the House side, that was a huge deal. That if Roe versus Wade is overturned, then Arkansas's anti-abortion laws go into effect. I thought that was I thought that would get a lot.
Hey folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. For all of our listeners, if you ever missed the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Okay, fine, whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio.
Do you hear that?
With Paul Harrell.
Do you hear that after that last segment? Do you hear? Lobbyist groups mobilize. Special interests assemble. That's what I'm hearing right now. After that last segment, that's what's going on right now. They're scrambling around. Oh no. We've got to find a way. Quick. Get Ace up real quick. We got to get somebody up there to throw a fundraiser. Well, that's already happening. I've seen the invitation. I've also seen the names that are on it. Oh, and by the way, going to be really awkward if John Cooper loses with some of the names on that list. It's just something that kind of popped up in my brain just then. But yeah, the thing is, look, it's good to have two choices. Whatever happens, happens. That's where I am at it. Let the people decide, and whatever the people decide, you just move forward, you know. But I'll tell you this much. I was there in 2014, and I remember what was said, what was actually done, and there's a huge gap there. I think you're seeing that now. And, bottom line is this. If you look at that Republican Party platform, it's good. It's really good. You go issue by issue with the average person, they agree with that thing. And they don't just want it talked about on the campaign, they want it actually implemented. Isn't it crazy that it's news? I had to bring you the news that a Republican committee affirmed the Republican platform. It shouldn't be news at all. attention than it did, and it really didn't.
Right. And I've read all of the analysis of whether Alabama's law went too far. The Supreme Court, if it gets to the Supreme Court, they have the ability to be able to speak to the issues of Roe v. Wade and still disagree with the extreme penalties that might be in that law as far as an abortion doctor performing the procedure knowing that it's illegal in the state. I think that that's the thing that people have said, yeah, Alabama went too far, 90-year penalty or something like that. But the Supreme Court has the ability to be able to split those issues out. The main thing is us getting a court challenge on Roe v. Wade. And I think that there's great potential for Arkansas's trigger law actually being able to be kicked in.
I do too. Towards the end of the session, we had an issue with sanctuary cities. What were your thoughts on that?
That's one of the other areas I was concerned about. I was also concerned that Senator Mark Johnson and I ran legislation to protect monuments. There's this trend across the country of liberals pulling down, monuments to Civil War heroes. So there's discussion, I think in one state of taking down monuments to Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. So Senator Johnson and I sponsored legislation, got through the Senate, got to the House committee, and once again, it was voted down by Republicans. And some of the feedback was, well, we don't need to worry about it in Arkansas. Well, within 2 weeks after the adjournment of the session, the Jefferson County judge said that the Civil War monument in front of the courthouse is being taken down somewhere else. So, there just really is not a lot of discipline among the Republicans, and that's something that happens. I think it's happened in the past when the Democrats had supermajorities, but right now the Democrats are more consistent in being able to vote as a bloc. The Republicans are extremely split, and a lot of it is on social issues. Some of it's on issues of school choice.
Yes.
Vouchers for students, even the Succeed Scholarship Program. We were making some technical corrections on a bill of whether a student has to have an IEP or can they also have an ISP. And some Republicans wanted to relitigate the original legislation.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so we decided on our meme of the day. Man, illegal immigration is such a big deal. When we'll get to the meme of the day here in a minute, but the meme of the day essentially is focusing on this theme of expanding welfare to people while ignoring those who truly need it. And in the case of illegal immigration, we have American citizens who need higher wages, or let's say that they do need welfare, and we're overloading the welfare rolls with unchecked illegal immigration. You see what I'm saying? Like, we'll get to it here in a minute. Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. We got State Senator Gary Stubblefield from District 6. Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Paul.
It's always great to have you on, and this is the impression of the session. You did one of these, I think, 2 years ago. And so I'll just give you the floor. This is kind of the format. Tell us, State Senator Gary Stubblefield, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Well, this was my 5th session since I've been there, and it was different in a number of ways. As far as some of the things were a little more stressful. We knew that they were coming. The highway funding bill and some of the other bills. I there was good legislation that was passed, and there was some good legislation that got killed. In fact, one of the more important bills I felt was more important that certainly would have helped the middle class, not just the middle class, but even the upper middle class lowering, was the used car tax.
Oh, yeah.
I really thought that was one of the best bills of the session, and in fact, when I heard it was filed, I was getting ready to file it, but I was going to make it $10,000. I really think that number needs to be at $10,000 because the price of used vehicles nowadays, you can't buy one for $10,000 or $15,000 that's worth anything. And that bill would have helped a lot of people, and I was just shocked when it was killed down in Tax and Revenue. And I don't know if Representative Payton plans on bringing that back, but if he doesn't in the next session, I can promise you I will bring it back, and it will be higher than $7,500.
Yeah,
because that will help a lot of people.
I like that because you're talking about. Well, you didn't pass it at 7,500. Well, next time it's 10. Just the price.
That's exactly right.
The wall just got 10 feet higher.
Yeah, if they really want to help people and help put money back in people's, because vehicles, I don't know, a lot of people remember the Cash for Clunkers program that Obama put in place, and that took a lot of vehicles out of people couldn't get good used cars. They were just demolished. And you go anywhere now to a car lot and try to buy a used vehicle, and they're just astronomical. I know my grandson was trying to buy one the other day, and I couldn't believe the price of it. So that needs to be raised. That's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the scope of practice bills, I was glad to see, the optometrist bill get through, but there should have been more scope of practice bills that got through. I had one that was changing one word as far as CRNAs were involved, just from the supervisory role of an anesthesiologist to change that word to in coordination, because we had anesthesiologists that were not even in the hospital when they had 6, 8 CRNAs working, and they're supposed to be supervising them, and they're not in a hospital. And we tried to change that, but when you're fighting the Arkansas Medical Association, that's a tough lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And they put a lot of pressure on these politicians, and I don't know. It's kind of discouraging. There was a lot of things that were really discouraging to me because I've watched the lobbyists for years, and lobbyists always look out for their clients. They look out for the best interest of their clients, and that's not always in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Arkansas. There's some good lobbyists, I will agree, and they give us some good information, but they still are looking out for the people they're paying them.
Yeah.
And I just wish more legislators would look out for their constituents and what's best for them.
Let me ask you this: were you on Senate? You're on Senate Judiciary, right?
Correct.
What was your reaction? Were you in the room that night when you guys were meeting and Senator Stephanie Flowers just went off and even told Senator Clark to, quote, go to hell?
I not only was in the room, I was 2 feet from Senator Flowers. I was, I've been there, like I say, it's going on 9 years. And I've seen some crazy things on the floor and in committee meetings, but I have never witnessed anything like that. And yes, I was sitting there, and I love Senator Clark. I really do. I respect him. He's a bright guy. He's very intelligent. He's very calm, cool, and collected. But I would have handled that situation a little different, because the minute she started raising her voice, I would have shut the whole meeting down. I would have canceled it. I said, we're adjourned. We'll come back when cooler heads prevail, because that got a little out of hand. A little out of hand, and it was, I don't know.
Were you surprised that bill fell? It was a stand your ground bill. It eventually failed. Were you surprised at that?
I really was. I really was, because I felt like Senator Cooper would vote for that bill, but he didn't. And yeah, I really thought the bill would get through, at least get through the committee.
Yeah. So
and I felt that, once the bill gets through a committee like that, it normally gets through the floor, especially when you've got a majority of Republicans. That bill should have gotten through. But again, they were fighting, prosecutors and and not all the sheriffs, there are some sheriffs out there that still believe in the Second Amendment, but they were fighting the Arkansas Sheriff's Association and the prosecutors, and I don't know. There's, some of that was another thing that was disappointing to me.
We're talking with
those are coming back, Paul. I promise you. There's going to be more attempts to take away our constitutional rights as far as our Second Amendment rights. We'll be fighting those from now on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've had, and I say this over and over. We've had what I call an inversion of common sense in this country, and an inversion of morality that I have never witnessed. I'm 68 years old, and I can remember back in the 50s and 60s, the things that we knew were wrong are now being called right. And the things that we knew were right back then are now being called wrong. So, hey, it's very troubling to me. We're down here in the River Valley right now. We're having a tremendous problem with floods, and thousands of people are losing their homes and all kinds. In fact, my district, Franklin, Logan, Johnson, Yale County, the Arkansas River runs through my entire district. And it's affecting a lot of people. And there's so many people that are volunteering to help, and I've seen so much good. It just gives you a lot of hope as far as our country's concerned. But at the same time, on Memorial Day, I was listening to some polls about young people. 60% of young people believe that if they had the opportunity, they would vote to do away with the Constitution. That's very, very troubling. And 61% didn't even know what we were celebrating on Memorial Day.
Oh.
And to me, that I think we're now seeing the fruits of what has been taught and not been taught in our education system, because a lot of schools are not teaching American history anymore. A lot of these kids don't even know anything about the Constitution. Someone once said that he who controls the present, I don't remember who it was, controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future. Well, if you control the past, you can eliminate what made this country the greatest, the most powerful, generous, prosperous country on the face of the earth. You can just eliminate that. Mm-hmm. That's the reason socialism looks, it's so appealing to some of these millennials now, because they don't even know what made this country the country it is.
Yeah.
And that's disheartening to me.
We're talking with State Senator Gary Stubblefield. This is his impression of the session. What about social issues, Gary? How do you think you guys did on social issues this session?
I think we did well. Anytime you have states, what amazes me, we have two states, I think, now that have abortion laws where you can kill a child after it's born. Birth a child, wrap it in a blanket, and then the mother and the doctor can decide whether or not to kill the child. That is, I can't even comprehend that. Let alone, and then kill a child right up to 9 months. And of course, I ran a couple of abortion bills this session, and I know when I presented the one that Senator Chesterfield asked me, she said, "How many more of these bills are you going to bring, Senator Stubblefield?" She said, "This has got to be a godzillion or something like that." And I told her from the Senate floor, I said, as long as they keep killing innocent unborn babies, I'll keep bringing abortion bills, because I believe that's the sin of our nation. I really do. I really believe it's the sin of our country, is that we've killed all these babies, and I think that's going to come back to haunt us.
Mm-hmm. I'm worried. I worry about that as well. What about the end of the session? And I want to talk about taxes here in a minute, but at the end of the session,
the immigration bill,
sanctuary cities. Tell us about it.
I'll tell you about it. It's always very difficult to run a bill like that. It's always, and I did not wait till the last minute. I know some of the Democrats were accusing me of waiting till the last minute and throwing it. And of course, they also come out and invoke Jesus and Christianity into this. And these are the same Democrats that voted for every kind of abortion all the way up to.
Can I interject there? Go ahead. That was actually interesting to me to hear the Democrats really just reveal how scripturally illiterate they are.
Exactly.
But that was just one of my observations. Go ahead.
Well, you're right. I went over to the House floor the day they voted on it, and to hear these Democrats go to the well and talk about how unchristian it is, and I thought, you are the same people who voted to kill an innocent unborn child, but you have a problem against setting up a sanctuary city to allow people who come in who've broken our laws, and in some cases, of course, they've already broken our laws. And some of those had done a lot of other things that were illegal, because I got a number of calls. Every time I run this bill, I always get calls from all over the state of cases where parents have lost kids or had someone in their family who's been injured, either in a car accident or a rape, and that individual, that person who's here illegally, never shows up. They just disappear. They either leave the state, and there's just no justice. But whenever I filed the bill, I got a call from city director at Little Rock, Lance Kine, and he began to tell me how Little Rock has appropriated $180,000 for photo IDs for illegal immigrants. And I said, I thought he was joking. And he said, no, this has been going on for some time. And in fact, the way they worked it into the budget, he acted like it was almost illegal the way they worked it in. I mean, this was the previous mayor, not the mayor they have now. And he asked me, he said, would you care if I testify? And I said, absolutely. I would love for you to come testify. So anyway, had no problem getting the bill through city, county, local, and then I had no problem getting it off the Senate floor. Once we got over to the House side, city, county, local committee, when I walked in the room with Representative Smith, there weren't very many committee members there. And the ones that were there, a lot of those were Democrats, and I knew where we stood with them. And, of course, that first day, and I don't know why they got up and left. There was a couple that took their phones and got up and left. And the vote was still, it was rather close. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 votes. But then, and it failed. The bill failed. So the next day, I had been on the phone with some people, and I know Brand had been on the phone with some people, trying to get this thing back in front of Lanny Fight was the chair of City County Local. And it was just amazing. We got it back, and then I think I know, Jan got on and put a list of all the people who had got up and walked out.
Jan Morgan.
The people who weren't there and didn't vote. And it was funny, the next day, several of those came to me and said, man, did we get a thrashing? And I said, well, how are you going to vote today? They said, you know how we're going to vote. So I knew we had it then. And then once we got it out of City, County, and Local, it wasn't a problem getting it to the floor.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, and it was a definitely a moment of solidarity with Republicans saying, yeah, we don't want sanctuary cities anywhere in Arkansas, and knowing that Little Rock might be kind of lurching towards that goal. And then, of course, right after that, a week later, the news broke that there was a plan for DHS to potentially drop off illegal aliens in sanctuary cities, which really made it a lot, a lot more interesting. We're talking with Senator Gary Stubblefield. This is Impression of the Session. Gary, let's talk about tax relief for the people. There was one good bill, I thought, the income tax cut, trying to make Arkansas more competitive over the next 2 years, bringing that 6.9% rate down to 5.9%.
Right.
That's good. But then you had some revenue takers. You had the internet sales tax. You had gas tax increase. You have the extension of the half-cent sales tax. So my question to you is, what do you think, and I've got DFNA's numbers in front of me, but do you think at the end of the day, especially in the next couple fiscal years, the people are going to be paying more money to the government than they were, or less money?
I think until all these kick in, that in the short term, we're going to be paying more. I don't think there's any question about that until these tax cuts actually kick in. Now, let me tell you about the internet sales tax. I was always opposed to that until this last Christmas. My brother owns a small electronics store here close to where I live. And he began to share with me over at Christmas, we were all together at Christmas, he began to share with me what was going on with not just his small business, but small businesses all over the state. He said, I have people coming into my store taking pictures of serial numbers and other things and getting the price and then walking out of the store and ordering that same electronic device over Amazon. And the more we talked, I began to realize, it really is hurting small business. I didn't think that at first, but he convinced me that it is, because you go out and look in some of these FedEx trucks, they're full of Amazon boxes. This is all coming across, and it's hurting our small businesses. I've never been for a tax increase. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to vote on. Kind of like the highway tax. That was one of the hardest bills I've ever voted on. But I'll say this. I talked to a number of my constituents before I voted on that. And the vast majority, almost all, told me the same thing. They did not mind paying that little extra amount of money, but what bothered them most was not seeing anything from it. Back when we passed the half-cent sales tax, and I think it was in 2011, I was there, a lot of these people are driving on and listen, I live in a rural district, very rural. A lot of these people are driving on the same roads that have never been touched since 2011 after paying that half-cent sales tax. And what bothers them is, now that this new 3 cents and 6 cents tax is going to be put on, they want to see something for their money before they vote on this half-cent sales tax. I voted against extending the half-cent sales tax until we get something from the highway department, the governor's office, because my constituents, their tax dollars are just as important to them as someone living in Jonesboro, Northwest Arkansas, Little Rock. We may live in a rural area. That doesn't mean their tax dollars are worth any less, and they expect just as much. So that's what most of those people were concerned about, was seeing something in return for their money they're spending. So, yeah, it was it's always hard to vote for a tax increase when you call yourself a conservative.
Well,
so we had different sources of revenue coming in. That was one of the things, the casinos and the electric cars who weren't paying anything. Some of the hybrids.
Well, Senator Gary Stubblefield, it's always great to have you on the show. We're out of time. I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving your impression of the session, and we'll do it again sometime, sir.
Hey, call me anytime.
All righty. Thank you. Senator Gary Stubblefield, everybody. We're going to be right back here in a moment. We're going to get to your meme of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife?
Attention than it did. It really didn't,
Right. And I've read all of the analysis of whether Alabama's law went too far. The Supreme Court, if it gets to the Supreme Court, they have the ability to be able to speak to the issues of Roe v. Wade and still disagree with the extreme penalties that might be in that law as far as an abortion doctor performing the procedure knowing that it's illegal in the state. I think that's the thing that people have said, yeah, Alabama went too far, 90-year penalty or something like that. But the Supreme Court has the ability to be able to split those issues out. The main thing is us getting a court challenge on Roe v. Wade. And I think that there's great potential for Arkansas' trigger law actually being able to be kicked in.
I do too.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Tomorrow on the program, we'll be talking with Rachel Martin from Young Americans for Liberty, the Arkansas and Oklahoma chair of that organization. Also, State Representative Josh Miller will be on to give his impression of the session. Then on Friday, we'll have State Representative Jack Ladyman and State Representative Brant Smith giving their impression of the session. Here is a tweet from President Donald Trump. Real quick, we have this where he spoke to Governor Asa Hutchinson of the great state of Arkansas to inform him that FEMA and the federal government will do whatever is necessary to help out with what has turned out to be record flooding. Asa and local officials are doing a great job. That from the President of the United States. From what I can tell, that is correct. Asa is coordinating, and he'll do a good job, coordinating with FEMA to help those people who are losing everything. Please be in prayer for our fellow Arkansans who are losing everything. Because it would be devastating. Just try to think about being in their shoes. Also, here is your meme of the day. It is a water-based meme, but we didn't plan on it. Sorry, we're not trying to be insensitive. This is courtesy of Proud North Carolina Deplorable. We have a meme where California Democrats are welcoming illegal immigrants. So you have a mom welcoming a toddler into the pool with open arms while homeless citizens or another child is having a hard time swimming. So you have California Democrats welcoming illegal immigrants and taking care of them in a pool setting where you have the homeless citizens are effectively drowning. Anyway, the memes are hard to describe. That's why you need to go to YouTube. You need to subscribe to Conduit News on YouTube. You need to watch on YouTube. You need to click the little bell to receive notifications. Or you can watch on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. And then you don't have to listen to me try to explain to you an image. I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's just easier if you can see it. This is your meme of the day. We will post it at Conduit News on Twitter and on the Facebook page here in the next 5 minutes or so. Special thanks to Tim Loggins for being on the program today with a great segment from Patriots Vec 746. It was great to have him back on. And another shout out to Senator Gary Stubblefield. We couldn't do the show without him today. It was great to get his information or his impression of the session. And as always, all of these interviews get cut up into smaller videos for you to share with your friends. And if you'll click that bell on the YouTube page, you'll get it. You'll get a little notification, and you can do that. And that helps us actually get more listeners, and so we appreciate that. We appreciate you. Arkansas will be back here tomorrow with bells on. Be safe.